and welcome back to the University Talk podcast, where we talk all things about student life and university in general. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that is close to our hearts, which is related to mental health, in particular, mental health of university students and international students. Today we have invited four speakers today, international students, all of them. We have Saraswati from Indonesia, we have Li Zhaoshuo, Sun Xiaolu, and Cheng Li Tian from China. How are you guys?
I'm so
Amazing.
excited to be here.
Thank you guys so much for coming
Hi.
to this podcast. Now I know that as international students, you guys face a lot of challenges, very unique challenges compared to us local students. So today we're going to discuss those challenges here today in this podcast. Now, before we start our podcast, right? I just want to let you guys know that we have conducted a survey, just asking general questions about mental health as international students. We ask international students from UKM and um, universities around KL and Selangor area. And the results are very interesting. So stay tuned to that. So without further ado, let's get started. Now I'm going to be talking to Saraswati, who's from Indonesia. Hi, how are we?
Hi, I'm doing amazing. How about you?
I'm doing just fine. So, I just want to ask you, what are the challenges that you face as an international student here in Malaysia? And is there any specific challenge in particular that you find very hard? Is there any personal experiences? Elaborate on that.
All right. Thank you, Priyanka. To start off our conversation, I'd like to talk about the challenges that international students may face when they first arrive in a new country. Moving away from home could be a big and daunting transition, especially when you're in a foreign land with different cultural norms and, in many cases, a language barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, I'd like to talk about cultural adjustment. The stress of adapting to a new culture could be very unnerving, especially for students who may not have prior exposure to the host country's lifestyle. From the survey, we have observed that less than 5% of our respondents find cultural adjustment to be not challenging. I'd assume those students are students that come from a similar culture, maybe like Indonesia,
Yeah.
and 85.7% finds it moderately challenging, while the 9.5% finds it very challenging. Additionally, 42.9% of our respondents find that cultural differences are one of the main factors that contribute to their stress. Personally, despite being Indonesian, I still find it difficult to adapt to the culture, traditions, and also to communicate with the locals in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Since despite it being similar in some ways between Indonesia and Malaysia, there are quite a number of differences between the language, the culture, as well as the etiquette and the norms. Moving on, another struggle international students may face is homesickness. Being away from family, friends, and our familiar environment and surroundings could, of course, lead to feelings of isolation and loneliness.
True.
In my case, since Indonesia and Malaysia are quite close and the cost of their flight is pretty affordable, I tend to go back to Indonesia like every holiday. For example, right now. Despite it not being an official academic holiday, I flew back to Indonesia for Christmas and New Year's to celebrate with my family and my friends. Yet, despite that, I still do get homesick, especially when I'm stressed out.
True. That's so
So,
true. I relate.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I could only imagine the difficulty that the other international students, for example, the Chinese students,
Oh, in China.
yeah, exactly, they may face since they may feel even more homesick than I do as their home country is further and it's
Mm,
more costly for them to fly back home.
yeah. So true.
The next challenge we international students would likely face is academic pressure. The added stress of adjusting to new academic systems and potentially facing language barriers when learning. 14.3% of our survey's respondents find the academic workload to be extremely stressful. 33.3% find it to be quite stressful, and the rest of the respondents find it only somewhat stressful. In addition, 66.7% of the respondents view academic workload to be the main contributor of their stress levels.
Wow.
From my personal experience in classes, a few lectures are taught in Bahasa Melayu fully, entirely,
Oh.
despite there being international students, with two of them in my class being from China, mainland China. And
Hmm.
as an Indonesian, I am able to understand things here and there since
Yeah.
there are similarities between my mother tongue and Bahasa Melayu. However, I am still unable to grasp all the learnings fully. So
Yeah,
I could
that's
only imagine.
hmm
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I think it's unfair, especially
Yeah,
to
that's
like those
true.
from China and maybe countries who don't have like similar languages to BM. I
Yes,
think it's
exactly.
yeah, and you're from the Faculty of
Indonesia.
Science and
Oh yeah,
Technology,
from
and
yeah, yeah.
it's very hard.
Yes, I
And yeah,
agree. So I
wow,
could
that is
only
a major
imagine,
challenge.
yeah, I could only imagine the struggles that the Chinese international students may face, having to learn a complex and difficult subject in a language that they are not familiar with at all. And lastly, I believe another stress factor for international students may be financial pressure. Many international students face financial difficulties, whether through tuition fees or, or the cost of living in a new country. 42.9% of our survey's respondents feel that financial concerns are the main contributors of their stress. Of course, being in a different country, and in most cases of us international students, we would likely be living alone, away from our family and our parents. Hence, we students would likely be struggling to try and adapt to the cost of living in new countries, as well as adapting to the different currencies as well. On
True.
top of that, we would also need to learn to budget and manage our finances on our own, as we may not have done so before under our parents' wings, which I also didn't have any experience of budgeting myself until I
True.
was living alone in Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to wrap it all up, I would like to just end my talk with, all these factors could lead to high levels of stress, anxiety, and even depression, which is why I feel that it is very, very important for universities and communities to recognize these challenges that international students may face and provide them with proper resources and proper help so that these students can cope. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Saraswati, for the incredible elaboration on that. I think like what you said about the lecturers speaking in Malay
Yes,
despite having international students in class, I think that is
yes.
very unfair
It is
and like
unfair.
very they're not inclusive of you
Yes,
guys.
it's
And I think that is a major issue, especially in universities here in Malaysia. So I hope in the future we can change that and we can
hopefully so, yes.
spread awareness about it. So thank
Yes.
you so much, Saraswati.
No issue. Thank you for having me.
So now we're going to talk to our second speaker here today, Sunchalu. How
Hi,
are we?
I'm
Hello.
good.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming to this podcast. So for today, elaborate and just explain about social isolation and loneliness as an
Yeah.
international student because I know it's very lonely here being alone coming from a different country in China especially like how does it feel and any personal experiences let us know.
I think the first is language barriers.
Mm,
So because my first language is Chinese,
yeah.
so I may not be fluent in English and have a Chinese accent. At the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, the class in the first semester, I think it will be difficult to hear and understand the professor speaking.
Oh.
Yeah. And another challenge is cultural differences.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't have a religion myself, so there have some religion rules and customs here that I don't understand and know at the beginning. Like women have dress rules, but in China it's freedom to dress.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm.
Okay, expanding on the challenges already mentioned, I'd like to explore some something may international students silent struggle with social isolation and loneliness. We have got the rules from the survey questions about language barriers. Do you experience language barriers that impact your daily life or study? I found almost international students in sometimes could suffer language barriers, which among 66.7%, and there have 19% for quite a bit, 9.5% for extremely. Yeah. As we can see, not being fluent in the local language can make even simple interactions daunting. It's tough. Yeah, it's tough to build meaningful connections when you are worried about making mistakes or not being understood. Over time, it can leave students feeling excluded, which only deepens the sense of loneliness. Yes, we have cultural disconnect for the question. How challenging do you find in adapting to the culture of your host country? And we found 85.7% have moderately challenging, 9.5% feel very challenging, and there have interest rate is no one feel extremely challenging. I think because most of the international students in Malaysia are Asian, so that the culture are similar. Yeah, and even when language isn't a problem, um, culture cultural difference often can make it harder to find common ground. Think about how small things like different social norms can create invisible walls. Yeah, this can leave international students, yeah, feeling like outsider.
Yeah, like being an outcast.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
understand.
Mm-hmm.
Since I also
Even
find difficulties, oh, sorry, since I also find difficulties in socializing with the local students
Mm-hmm.
here because of
yeah,
because of the language barriers.
Yeah. And same thing, like I'm from Borneo, East Malaysia. It's even though we are Malaysians, we have different culture compared to West
Yes.
Malaysians. So I
Mm-hmm.
truly relate to you guys. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's right. Even in seemingly inclusive spaces. And for international students, this feeling can be amplified when they don't see themselves responded or feel truly understood by their peers. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Sunjalu, for
Yeah,
the very impactful testimony that you've given us. We hear you, and
yeah,
I hope that our listeners here um, feel your pain and feel your distress because these issues should be highlighted. And this is the reason why we're doing this podcast today. So thank you so
yeah,
much, Sunjalu.
thank you.
Third speaker here today, we have Cheng Li Tian. Hello, how are we?
Hello, hello, I'm
Yes.
doing.
So, since we already talk about social isolation, talk about the challenges, the unique challenges that that international students face mentally, um, let's talk about mental health and the stigma uh, around seeking help as an international student, because I think it's much harder, coming to a new country and then you have to, seek help like counseling and stuff. It's much more challenging as an international student. So could you explain to us those challenges?
Yeah, sure. For this part, I think there are four main parts. I think probably the biggest problem for people just arriving in Malaysia is the language communication problem. And according to our research data, 66.7% of students consider academic workload and social isolation as having their main sources of stress, and both of them are based on language and communication problem, right? So the language and communication barriers can present formidable obstacles in the therapeutic process for international students expressing complex emotions and inner struggles in a language that is not one's own can be a daunting task, leading to feelings of frustration, miscommunication, and a sense of disconnect in therapy sessions. Bridging these linguistic gaps requires culturally competent therapists who can provide language support and create a new space where students feel understood and heard, enabling effective communication and fostering a therapeutic relationship built on trust and empathy. Next, the next one is, I think, is cultural stigma. In certain cultures, mental health concerns are often perceived as a personal failure or a tough subject. This deeply ingrained stigma can cast a shadow of shame and inadequacy upon individuals who are grappling with mental health challenges. The fear of being labeled as weak or flawed can act as a powerful deterrent, preventing students from seeking the professional help they urgently require. Breaking down this cultural stigma necessitates a collective effort to foster understanding, compassion, and acceptance towards mental health struggles. I think the next one is fear of judgment. The fear of judgment, whether from peers, family members, or society at large, can be also a formidable barrier for students seeking mental health support. The apprehension of being stigmatized or ostracized for acknowledging one's struggles can create a suffocating atmosphere of silence and isolation. Overcoming this fear requires creating safe space where individuals feel empowered to speak openly about their mental health challenges without the fear of reproach of condemnation, fostering a culture of empathy and support.
Just like
Okay,
what
the
we're
last
doing here
one,
today, right? Like
yeah,
creating a safe space for you guys to speak out on your mental health struggles. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Uh, Then the next is accessing mental health resources can pose a significant challenge for international students. Limited awareness about the available support services and a lack of familiarity with the mental health landscape in a new country can leave students feeling adrift and unsure of where to turn for help. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
For that, I would like to tell you a story about our experience during my
Yes.
time when I first arrived in Malaysia. I was very stressed out. The language problems like not really understand the classes like Shaulu's experience, yes, and
Mm,
cultural
Yeah,
problems and
actually.
other reasons. I didn't dare to talk to anyone because I was afraid that people would think I had mental problems. Are you
Yeah.
mentally ill?
no,
You are so weak.
no, you're not.
I don't. Yeah, I don't want to
I
talk
think
to you.
personally, like if you seek help, that is the opposite of being weak. That means
I
you're strong.
agree. That takes a lot of
Yeah.
You're
courage to do
aware of
so.
yourself. Yeah.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Yes. In summary, the combination of stigma and the lack of accessible support creates a serious barrier to mental health care for many international students. It's critical that universities and societies break down these barriers to help students access the help they need. So finally, I would like to conclude by telling you, I was afraid that people would think I was mentally ill. I was afraid that people would think I was very weak. No, don't think like that.
yes,
You should be thinking of ways to get better instead of
Yes.
being
yes.
internally, destructive all the time. Okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Cheng Li Tian, for the very powerful message that you've given to us and the listeners. Because I believe that there are a lot of international students here listening, and it's just not just for international students, but for university students in general, right? Um,
Yeah.
like you said, seek help and don't
Yes.
be afraid if you're like
Yeah.
mentally ill or whatever. Yeah, so thank you so much, Cheng Li Tian.
Thank you.
Now let's get to our last speaker here today, Li Jiaoshuo from China. Hello, hello. How are
Hello.
we?
Yeah.
Hi. How are you? How
Yes,
are you?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. So, we talk about the negatives. So now let's talk about the positives of this podcast, right? We don't want to talk about just like bad things all around. We want some good things as well. Um, could you give us insights on support systems and resources, like the importance of having a support system and resources that you can find, like mental health resources here in Malaysia as an international student?
Yep, thanks. So now I'd like to focus on the positive side. What can be done to improve the mental health of international students, and what support systems and the resources can be made available to them. So based on the research, we can draw the following conclusions. First, I want to talk about how universities can offer counseling service tailored to the needs of international students. In fact, universities should try to increase the importance of this course, because 62% of students said there were no mental health resources on campus.
Mm,
So if school can try to increase the importance of this course, students can pay more attention to their own psychological problems.
that's true.
So second one, I want to talk about uh, the importance of peer networks, mentorship programs, and international students associations that help students connect with others who
Mhm.
share similar experiences.
Yes.
Nowadays, the internet is very developed, and psychological problems can also be solved on the internet or in related uh, associations.
Mm,
So we can try to exchange relevant issues and help each other.
yeah.
So I think students can, people with similar experiences will be able to help each other better right now.
Yeah. True.
Yep,
I agree. I agree.
yep. And we have to ensure that support staff and mental health professionals are culturally competent and understand the unique challenges faced by international students. I think it's a very important question.
Mm,
Psychological therapists or counselors should have sufficient knowledge to guide students in the right direction. Uh, I think school can uh, pay more attention about that.
yeah.
Uh,
True.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And last one, we also need to consider community engagement. Yeah. In the survey results, we can see that 85% and 66% of students feel that the cultural and the language are challenging. Uh,
Mm,
as all we group and said. So we have to encouraging uh, international students to engage with local communities to build connection and combat isolation. So uh, I s- so international students often feel inferior or have social difficulties due to language and cultural problems.
mm-hmm.
Uh, yep. So we should encourage. I think we should encourage international students to actively participate and in local activities and learn more about local culture.
True.
To yeah, yeah,
To
yeah,
integrate with, other
yeah,
Malaysians, and you can be friends and stuff.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So LS, yeah, then LS, these support systems are crucial for help international students maintain their mental health. But I think universities and governments and communities must all work together to create an environment that is welcoming and supportive for students from every corner of the globe. Yeah,
Yep.
that's
Mm-hmm.
all I want to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
thank you.
thank you so much, Li Xiaoshuo. Um, I would like to highlight the counseling thing. I think, yeah, we have counseling services on campus, but I think it's only, I wouldn't say it's catered to everyone, but it's hard for international students to approach the counseling services here because
Mm.
it's in English or in Malay. And maybe if you're from China, it'll be harder for you to communicate with the counselor. Same goes with like psychiatrists outside. I think in the future, our university can hire maybe like a multilingual counselor that could speak Chinese. I think that
Yeah.
would be very helpful, especially in UKM, because I feel like majority of the international students here in UKM are from China. So that is something that I think our university could think about in the future. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In
Yes,
addition,
it's a good
I
idea.
would like to add
Yeah.
to that as well,
Mm-hmm.
because when I first came to UKM, I didn't know any of these kind of knowledge about counselors and such.
Mm.
I mostly knew it from friends. So I feel like the university could also inform the students about
That's
these
true.
things instead of
Yeah.
them having to learn it from other people, because they
Mhm.
might not even learn it in the end because they
That's
might not
true.
make the connections to learn that as well.
Yeah. I know
So I feel
people
that
who,
universities would also like to inform that too.
yeah, I know people who like who's been on campus for 4 years and still haven't like really explored the university like
Yes, I
throughout. Like,
agree.
so I think not everyone know that we have a counseling service.
Yeah.
So I think during orientation, maybe like they could at least highlight, hey, we have a counseling service.
Yes,
If you have any
exactly.
problems, you can come. So yeah, I agree with you, Saraswati. Thank you so much, Li Jiaoshuo, once again for your insight and your explanation about support systems and resources in on uni. Discussed everything about the challenges that you guys face as international students. So what can we students, international and local students alike, can help take care and improve our mental health? Because like I think we can prevent these issues from coming into our lives. And by doing so, there's so many approach to that. We can do a lot of activities and just simple habits in our lives can help improve our mental health. So these are just little suggestions that I picked up from the internet and from my own personal experience. So first of all, it's self-care and wellness. I think having to take care of yourself physically can truly and really mentally keep yourself in check or keep your mental health healthy, if that makes sense. And it's not just, and people think self care is all about spending mindfully in the mall, buying things that you like, and blah, blah, blah. But actually, no, self care is, it could be meditation, it could be in prayer. You can exercise. Exercise is a form of self-care. Um, and maintaining a healthy diet, eating healthily, like those are things that could physically make you feel good, and automatically it will make your um, mental health also feel good. So self-care is a huge um, contributor to your mental health. Do you guys agree with that? Do you think self-care is
I agree
important?
completely, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And second is building a support network. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Li Jiaoshuo and Cheng Litian had discussed about this earlier about having a support system, engaging in a community, is very important because having a piece with you, like having a piece of home with you in a different country just hits different. I think, like I have friends studying in the UK. There's this thing called the Malaysian Games in Nottingham where all the Malaysian students from all parts of UK come together, play sports, and just have a blast. Um, that's just an example of like how international students are able to um, build a community, even though they're from a they're in a different country, right? So I think, and I am a walking testimony of that. Even though I'm from Malaysia, I'm from Borneo, but I joined the Sabah Society, Student Society, and I'm able to build a connection. I'm able to have network within, Sabahan students. So and that automatically improve my mental health because I don't feel lonely, I don't feel alone. So I think that everyone, I think you guys have like China Student Society or like Indonesian Student Society, right?
Yes, we do
Yeah.
actually. Ours is called PPI.
PPI. Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, having a support system, having a support network, and engaging in community on campus is very important and could improve your mental health. And lastly, I would like to highlight this specific thing about setting realistic expectations, especially as international students. I think you have that pressure of having to do well academically, and socially as well, because your parents at home would be like, I hope you have friends, blah, 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 right? Um,
Yeah.
all I gotta say is take your time. We all have our own timelines. You don't have to work things out immediately. Um, just take your time. It's okay to not be okay. Reach out when you need to, when you feel stressed out, when you're just, not feeling well. Reach out to your friends, counselors, your lecturers even. I think they will be very helpful. Um, they will help you if you reach out, yeah, to them and talk about your struggles as international students. I bet they would understand. Um, so yeah, those are just suggestions. Those are just like things that I find um, helpful as students, and I hope international students, you guys can take those notes in, and I hope you guys can implement that into your lives, and take care of your mental health. That's very important.
Yes, we'll do that.
Yes.
Week's episode of the University Talk podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was a very interesting topic to talk about. Um, so many insights, so many experiences from our speakers today. Thank you so much for coming. Um, this is a very, very important episode. I hope all our listeners enjoy. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast to all your friends out there. We have exciting episodes coming up next week, something to do with study tips since exams are around the corner. So you don't want to miss that episode out. So thank you so much to all our speakers today, Saraswati, Li Jiaoshuo, Sun Shalu, and Cheng Li Tian for coming today, taking your time to speak with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Thank
Bye bye.
you. Bye bye. Thank you.